me, I'm a student of history when it comes to bands and artists and career arcs. And you see how many times bands try and change a singer and it doesn't work. You see the examples where it does work. And so you're trying to use that history to establish something that could possibly work out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Siobhán and welcome back to another episode of 2020. Here again, as always, with Ben and Cory, and welcome back for part 2 with Doc Coyle, the amazing guy behind the X-Man podcast, Bad Wolves, so many other projects that he talks about a lot in part 1.
Too many projects. Too many projects.
So if you haven't checked out part 1, go back and listen. Check it out. He has a lot to say about his background. Part 2, we get into a lot more conversation with him.
From Metallica.
Yeah, no, he's cool because it's just, he has this like very direct way of stating his opinions, and there's definitely no bullshit around it. And
he's a true podcaster, unlike us.
I know, right? as we search for words and have no idea what we're doing. But if you guys have not subscribed, please do so. Please do so, because then you'll hear every episode and you'll be notified when it comes out every Tuesday. No, every Wednesday.
So I don't have to text you guys anymore.
It's every Wednesday and Sunday night, not on Tuesdays.
Cory's forgetting.
He's not even smoking.
Don't wait on a Tuesday.
Yes, if you really want to like get there early and stand in line.
Already? Can we just put on some more Doc? Because I feel like he just knows a lot of stuff, and we should probably just get to that.
All right, so let's get to it. Part 2 with Doc Coyle.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Benny Goodman, and I'm here at 2020, the show you're listening to. And the first thing I'm going to ask of all of you is to hit that, smash that,
blow it
out of the fucking park.
You've already annoyed everybody that's listening.
The subscribe button.
Don't smash it. Click it nice and calmly.
And let me introduce my cohorts as we've trademarked or patent pending or whatever the legal jargon that we're supposed to say. Siobhán Cronin.
Hello.
And my friend, my compatriot, my partner in this debauchery, Cory Peza.
Hi, Ben.
He got a much better intro than I did. Why do you
hate
me?
And of course, I'm so happy that he stuck around, and what a great dude, just all around MVP in the music industry. This guy has a podcast called The X-Man. He was in a band called God Forbid. He's now in a band called The Bad Wolves. Huge band, as you probably know. Like, I did that like Trump. I fucking hate myself already. and he writes. He's a philosopher. He's smart, as we say over here. His friends tell him he sucks. People that say yes, he hates those people, but he likes some of them. I don't know. Doc Coyle.
That's right.
Was that confusing enough for you?
I don't know. I feel like I should be like, yeah.
Was that hyperbolic?
I told you. I'm coming.
Like the old WWF. Wait, Hoger.
Now, see, if it was I'd start like this, like kind of.
Oh yeah, got to dim the lights a little bit.
We need like an epic entrance song.
Shawn Michaels. Yeah. You got to make it dramatic. Did
you think that the Ultimate Warrior died and then another guy came back, or did you just know that he stopped doing drugs and wasn't as huge?
I mean, is there a documentary about that stuff? I
don't know, but I feel like we need to make it, Doc. It's your fucking name.
I'm not going to be the guy, but
all right,
I will watch it.
Okay.
Ultimate Warrior was the greatest.
Cory, come up with something intelligent before my brain completely just the cachet's out.
Glad to. So last episode, if you guys haven't checked it out, part 1, go check it out. We talk a little bit about Doc's background and how he got into music and all these cool things he's doing. Got a little philosophical. Ben tried to use as many big words as he could possibly fit into the show. Some of them made sense. For this episode, I would actually like to hear more about Doc's experience doing the podcast. You've been doing this, I think I just saw you hit like 150 episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when did you start the X-Man?
Started in October 2016. So.
Wow. So you've been doing it a while.
Yeah.
Before all the cancel culture got on there and anybody with a USB microphone said like, I have a podcast.
Well, kind of early. Yeah. Early for podcasts. I mean, yeah, now everyone does them, but
I tried to start one in 2012, and then only did one episode, and then I didn't put it out, but I was trying to get way ahead of it, but I still was a little slow to it. So I feel like I was slow to it, but now with the pandemic, everyone, I'm seeing a lot of people with podcasts. I'm just like, okay. you too, I guess. Okay. Like, I think there should be a limit. Like, at one point, 3 dudes in Bad Wolves had podcasts. And I'm like, this is not like, and I'm looking at multiple dudes in Bad. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like it.
I feel like you can Google any actor or actress and it's like, oh, Rob Lowe. Wait, he has a fucking podcast? Like Chuck Norris. He has a fucking podcast? What the fuck?
Yeah, well, I look at it this way. It's having a podcast now is just kind of like having a website, right? It's just a place for people to go to check out your shit.
Like Cheers.
Yeah.
It's just stopping in. Oh, what's their vibe? The question is, I think, for the whole genre is like, how do people have enough time to listen to everyone? Or is it like those situations where as long as you have your little pond of people that check you out and you just stop in, is it worthwhile? But listen, I enjoy it as just a space to explore different ideas, connect. Like 9 out of 10 times I'm dealing with someone who's a friend of mine or someone I have a relationship with. And there's always a lot of value in that, and kind of connecting with people, telling stories, and also providing, the theme of my show is kind of a career retrospective show about how these different artists or people figure out their lives during tough times. And that's helpful, I think, for listeners that say, okay, I'm 32 years old. Should I quit music? Should I go into this? Should I, and when you have a bunch of conversations, you see, okay, how did this person figure this out? How do they know what I was going to do next? I think there's a lot of value in that. And people have expressed that with me and shared that with me.
Yeah. No, that's something we've encountered a lot in the guests that we've interviewed. A lot of common themes among successful people or people that have really, pushed through in the music industry. So I think it definitely helps you learn a lot, even just for developing your own craft, taking advice from people that have done it and stuck with it for a long time. So aside from just educating others, I mean, it's interesting for all of us, getting to talk to all these different people.
Yeah. And before we get too meta, actually, just because we're talking about it, with 150 shows, a lot of guests, a lot of people we talked to in the industry, has there been anything that you have noticed as a very common thread amongst those people?
Yeah. I mean, and listen, a lot of this stuff it's not a secret if you just go and read kind of just generally successful people, and you see a lot of the same themes,
Or you can share us your Google Analytics so we could break into the numbers and understand.
I mean, no.
Just okay.
I'm not sharing that with you. But like this, and for me, especially in the world I come from, is that bitterness kills. Like there's people in this industry who they have a sense of entitlement, and they think I deserve this and I deserve that, and just time after time after time that it's a failing formula, and people, like I had Dave Lombardo on my show from Slayer, which is probably the biggest show I've done to this date. And the thing I loved about him, man, is he left one of the biggest metal bands of all time, but he never broke pace. He just kept working and he just kept grinding. And I saw him out here in the Valley in LA playing in front of like 30 people with like his other band Film. He's like setting up his own drums. And it's like, he doesn't have to do that. Mm-hmm. He does it because he wants to. And, and that was before he was playing Mr. Bungle and playing with the Misfits and all these things. And it just goes to show you like
suicidal tendency.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
trying to remember if it was before he was with Suicidal, but
I saw him with Suicidal and it was kind of, this is just my impression, but I met him and then I met Chris Adler was playing with Megadeth at the time. And I mean, Chris was very polite, but it was funny because Chris came out, with his scarf. He was all very prim and proper, and he had like this aura of I'm the rock star, not in like a bad way, like he wasn't being a jerk or whatever. But then Dave came out, and was kind of like, "Hey man, like what's up, guys?" And I'm like, "Wait, that's Dave Lombardo?" Like, and he was so humble and so down to earth and so like for real. Like it was so refreshing because you do meet a lot of people, and sometimes they do have that aura, and rightfully so, because some of these guys are legends. But like Dave is a legend that, again, watching him on your show was a pleasure, because it's like he's totally a normal dude that was in one of the biggest bands ever and still plays with everybody and has just so people have respect for him because he's just a good dude.
Yeah, well, they're normal, but they're not normal, right? Because they're normal, he wouldn't be Dave Lombardo, right?
Right.
So
what is normal? We don't know.
No, but I think what makes them abnormal is that ability to keep thriving when things go, when they zig, when you thought they were going to zag. And to me, that's like the craziest thing. Is like, okay, you were in one position and then you're in another position. And how do you navigate that? Or people that, I've, guys like, Thomas Maxwell from Hell Yeah, who was in this band, Nothing Facer, where he was, and it was very similar. Like some of these people, like their tracks in life are so similar to mine, where they had this one band, that was their life and that's what they were going to do. And then next thing they knew, it's like, it didn't work out. But then they ended up in a situation that was better than it's like this idea that we think just because the now is not working out, that
you think it's like a metaphor for any codependent relationship?
Yeah, well, but it's also this idea that we have to really, as human beings, it's important to reconfigure how we understand failure. And I put failure in quotes, is that that's where all the shit is. That's where all the interesting stuff is when it doesn't work out. That's where all the wisdom is. If you have nothing but success, then when you actually do have something not work out, you don't know what to do. But I just think there's so much more wisdom in things like not meeting your expectations, and people internalize failure as a reflection of who they are, or that, like I said, that way we identify, I'm this person and now I'm this person and that, and instead of going, no, that's all part of it. That's all part of the process and things.
Well, a lot of people, I feel like nowadays, like to define themselves because it's like such a thing to do in culture. Like, I am this way and please define me this way, as opposed to just letting their actions speak louder.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you listen enough of these conversations, if you can apply it and say, hey, I'm going to try this, and this doesn't work out to your expectations, and then you say like, well, I guess it didn't work out. I guess I'm going to quit forever and do something. And but by the way, sometimes that's the right thing to do. Sometimes if you try thing X and it goes, well, it turns out I'm just not that good at being a comedian, so maybe I should go try doing something else. Sometimes that's the exact decision you need to make. And sometimes it's, well, okay, well, I tried this kind of routine and maybe I need to try another routine, or maybe I had this kind of way to market myself and I need to try. So it's, you try things and they don't work the way you think.
It kind of goes back to what we said about self-awareness in the previous episode, in terms of your own ego, but also in terms of the paths you try to take. Because if you develop good self-awareness, not only can you keep your ego in check and keep your, surroundings manageable mentally, but if you do try things like that and they're not working out, you have the wherewithal to say, all right, maybe I can pivot here a little bit and try something similar, but not exactly what I was thinking. Or you do say it like, you know what? I have, whatever. I'm tone deaf. Maybe I shouldn't try to be a clarinet player. It's one of those things where self-awareness is,
was that a jab?
100%.
Benny Goodman, the King of Swing, guys, go check it out. Sing, sing, sing. Awesome tune. You probably know it.
But yeah,
clarinet player.
Point being that self-awareness, I think, can save you a lot of grief in many aspects of your life.
Yeah. And also I think managing expectations.
Right. Exactly.
Sometimes people box themselves in a corner by not expanding the realm of what the possibilities could really be. It's like, as they call them kind of like the security field, like a failure of imagination, right? Like certain things you just didn't think, you couldn't imagine this outcome. So when it did happen, you were so taken aback that it kind of crumbled you. And so that is something I think this goes back to this idea of what I said about people who think they deserve this thing over here. And it's like, well, what does that mean? What does deserve mean? I mean, so only good things happen to good people and bad things should happen to bad people. That'd be nice, but the world don't work that way. a lot more chaotic, a lot more random. And so just kind of doing what you do and just staying focused on that and not worrying about the outcomes all the time and just keep working. That's what's going to get you, I think, where you need to go.
So you, in the last episode, we talked about, you moving to LA and how you left your first band. I'm just interested to hear about some of the instances, I guess, in your path where things haven't worked out or you've decided to make a change. So can you maybe talk about why you chose to leave or what wasn't working or how you knew that you had to make a change in your life to sort of shift courses?
Well, I mean, just God forbid in general. I mean, I probably should have left the band 2 years earlier. My heart wasn't totally in it. And, but I was like, okay, let's give it this one last shot. And the band wasn't making enough money for us to really live how we need to live. And I had to put some boundaries and say, guys, I don't have a place to live. I need to make a living first before we can kind of approach this. And then I felt some of the interpersonal elements of the band was not really functional, and it kind of reached a boiling point, and I shut it down. And I think the thing about that, the power, there's the power in kind of saying, hey, I'm the only thing, like a lot of times the only power we have is to remove ourselves from an environment. Mm-hmm. And that's because you can't control other people 9 out of 10 times. All you can do is control yourself and say, okay, this isn't working for me, so I'm gonna go over and do this. But at the heart of that, it's the fact that the band failed to meet the level of what we wanted the band to be, mm-hmm. And that was the course over however many years. The band probably peaked, 6 years before the band actually broke up, but you don't really know your peak at the time, right? You always think you're on the ascension. But there was also the failure of me being a 30-something-year-old man who didn't have much in life. Like I didn't have money saved up, didn't have job prospects, and was like, oh, you kind of caught with your pants down. Okay, let's explore. And I was living with my grandmother until I was 30 years old, Mm-hmm. So I was kind of someone who always had this Arrested Development failure to launch, and I had to discover and understand and learn how to just be an adult and be an independent person. Mm-hmm. So that was like a reflection of personal, you could call it failure. But like I said, what I also learned during that time was to stop beating myself up, was learn to, and I made failures morally, with relationships by doing bad things and that was all part of that whole period from the time I was like 30 to like 33, 34 was all self-reflection, was all like, we're breaking it down to build it back up. And out of that was like, stop beating yourself up.
Yeah.
Be okay with being imperfect.
Yeah. And I think a lot. No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, but that's something where people, that fucks people up, is they really get into beating themselves up, and they really get into like that self-loathing thing.
Right. And I think whether you're in music or any other industry, a lot of people allow themselves to be defined by the main project that they're a part of, or their job or their band or something. And I think it's hard for people to know the limit of when is this not serving me anymore in a realistic way, and know when to make a change, and that you exist beyond the confines of whatever thing you're doing right now.
Well, I mean, I read this article, and it was also a podcast from this outlet called Freakonomics.
Oh, I love Freakonomics. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was called Upside of Quitting.
Mm-hmm.
And it really factored into my decision, because it was talking about that basically any enterprise you get involved in has essentially an arc where it reaches an apex and it falls off. And they speak about it in economic terms of opportunity cost. So mm-hmm. It means every minute you spend doing one thing, that's a minute you can't spend doing something else.
Yep.
And so and unfortunately what people usually do is there's a thing called sunk costs, where it's a fallacy where when you spend so much time doing one thing, you then overly value that thing because of the time. It becomes like the self-fulfilling prophecy that
there's diminishing returns on your time.
you'll stay on the sinking ship because you've been on the sinking ship, right? Mm-hmm. And so the way is to kind of like decouple that from how you look at endeavors and say, okay, this is not working for me, right? And how do I, okay. And unfortunately it kind of goes a little counter to the idea of like what I started with bands, which was like, we're a band, it's we, not me. Right. Mm-hmm. And I really, from that point on, I really started viewing myself as an individual who was involved in collaborative situations. But like I said before, this is on the last episode, I was talking about the idea of freedom. But freedom is the freedom to leave, to like, hey, this doesn't work for me. And but there's power in that. There's power in saying, you can't control me. I can come and go. If you're mistreating me, I will leave. If you're not, and the same thing with relationships, right? Now, I don't mean just like romantic relationships. I mean, like if you have a family member who mistreats you and you say, hey, I'll let you know, it's a privilege to have me in your life. If you abuse it, you will not have me in your life. That is my power, right? Yeah. And once you exercise that and you go, oh, wow, okay, I do have control over something. I can't control other people, right? If someone's an asshole, I can't always convince them to not be an asshole, right? If someone's abusing me, I can't always convince them to stop abusing me. So all you can do is go, okay, you go over there, I'm gonna be over here. And that's
you have to control what you can control. And that's the only thing you can control.
Well, I forget but it's like this, I think it's this 7 daily habits of highly effective people. They call it circle control, right? So basically a way of like not letting bullshit fuck you up, where it's like, okay, can I control international politics or like wars? Half of girls are, nope, I can't control that. So why are you worrying about it?
Right.
Can I control, like, you just, okay, when you actually get down to it, I can control like these 8 things. So only worry about that. If you worry about this thing, it's raining outside. Can you move the weather? No, I can't do that. Okay, don't worry about that. I'm stuck in traffic. Can I control the traffic? No. So why are you pissed? God damn it, the traffic. It's like, yeah, that's why you're miserable, because you worry about shit.
There's only so many fucks you can appropriate to one day.
Yeah, well, exactly. And so, but people get locked in that cycle of just like being, and listen, we're all, no one's in everything that I will criticize other people. I am too have been guilty of it all the time. So try not to be hypocritical there. But if you're like so mad that your favorite team lost the game, you probably should stop watching that game so much. If you're so mad that your favorite candidate lost an election, you probably should like not be into politics that much, because instead of worrying about your shit, it's about that shit.
Well, let me ask you. I was actually talking to somebody online and they commented on something that Siobhán was tagged in. And they put her band Starset, and I didn't know that the S and the E had their own, like, is it an emoji? They have their own text. So Starset's written out a certain way. And he was writing to me about Starset in the actual Starset font.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, should that guy not be listening to Starset anymore? Because he's taking this entirely too seriously.
I mean, I wouldn't put that in that category, but
I mean, well, I don't know. Like, look, I'm friends with Siobhán. I know her name has a conic cento. But like, I don't put it because like, how the fuck do you find it? Unless I find Beyonce on Wikipedia and copy
0225.
Oh my gosh, no.
Is it really what it is?
Yeah, I have to write her name.
No, but I don't even care about that stuff. No, but
you're
right.
I'm just saying, like, at what point you just say, fuck it.
I think the point being more if something's detrimental to your lifestyle.
Well, I'm wondering if you're that invested in Starset and you think they're from outer space.
Hey, maybe it's enriching his life. Let him be.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, the internet is a weird place. The incentive system is so weird. People behave in odd ways. I was just thinking about this today because, like, you see all these memes about like what our parents think about like when Facebook and Instagram came out. That's how I feel about TikTok. It's like I got used to like what I grew up with, and then all of a sudden TikTok and all this other craziness happens, and I look at it and I'm like, what is this? How does this work?
I could never get over my top 10 friends on MySpace. I don't understand this Facebook thing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's weird because you can
Google
get
Plus
so
too.
Easily sucked into these weird platforms with weird incentives where you get, reinforced to say, like you said, provocative or controversial shit, or you know, you go on TikTok and you post something that's really stupid and lots of people like it. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm just going to post stupid shit all the time. It's, you know, it's so hard to know how to navigate. Like, when are you too deep into a certain way of thinking or into a certain way of, you know, letting other things kind of dictate how you think or how you act. So it's
why are we letting these likes operantly condition us?
Yeah, well, exactly.
That's pretty much what you're saying to me, because, like, what is it? Like, people say that they go on, the whole idea of Facebook or TikTok or Instagram is to immerse you for as long as they possibly can and make people keep clicking. And the endorphins that people get from likes is what, you're right. Some girl who's not that hot post one picture of themselves in something that's like they shouldn't be wearing, and then people like it because there's a bunch of creeps out there, and then that just tells them, operantly conditions them to continue doing that horse shit. And that's why there's so many people misguided in this country, because we give everybody trophies for the first and the seventh fucking place. There's no differentiation between the fucking horse shit and the goddamn gold.
Hot take, man. Against everyone getting the trophy, man. I haven't heard that.
Yeah,
that take.
No, never.
Guys, let's keep it civil here.
Yeah. Anyway, we not to go off the rails again.
I just wanted to kind of bring it back to, you know, talking about what you've learned from your podcast, aside from, you know, I think you said that, like, you know, bitterness doesn't fly in the world of music. Like, has there been anything else that surprised you at all, like that you learned, you know, from a lot of these people? Like, because I know, you know, and I haven't listened to all 150, but I have listened to quite a few, and it's always interesting. It's not just musicians, because musicians nowadays aren't just musicians. So you have
right.
people that are branching out into different areas. So has there been anything business wise or, you know, philosophical for, like, lifestyle decisions that have come up repeatedly that maybe you did actually kind of gain a new perspective on?
I think it's a slow perspective on that, and, like, just understanding things over a course of a long period of time. You get, and like I said, you see these patterns, right? Of, like, because I'm not just talking to people who were in a band and the band ended. They said some people who stayed in the band for 20 years, and you get to kind of see, okay, why did that work for them? Or some people who left a band and then went into a completely different field. And then they're now an actor, or now they're an artist manager, or, you know, maybe got out of it all together. I think, you know, I'm trying to find a way to say this that feels fresh. Because I feel like I kind of referred to this stuff before about just thinking healthily, you know. Yeah, I think I pretty much kind of summed it up before
Sure.
in a lot of different ways.
That's all right. No,
Understandable.
that's cool.
It's all good.
You know.
Listen, we're the Department of Redundancy department.
Yeah.
That's all right.
So, like, we'll just say subscribe over and over and over, and then say the same thing
Well,
over
I
and
don't
over.
wanna
Say
be too
Doc Coyle,
repetitive.
and then redundant,
Sure.
and then the same thing.
So
Yeah, I mean,
then I'll rephrase it like this: like, have those conversations had an effect on you personally? Like, have you learned and grown from them?
yeah. Well, I feel like I said before, I notice how much I have in common with some of these people, because you kind of understand when you get into this field.
Being good looking
Well, I'm not that.
and rich,
Because
because everyone knows that rock stars are all rich. We're all rich.
You think we make money doing this? Yeah, right.
Nice.
Maybe Starset money. You have your own fucking type font. That's pretty impressive.
Doesn't mean anyone's making money. You'd be surprised.
Is there any emoji money coming in right now, Doc?
Not on my end.
Because,
Nice,
I mean, do you have, like, a trademark on the wolf emoji? Or does it have to be multiple wolves for it to be, like, you know, prior art?
I think the people who created them have the trademarks, I would think, right? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just a guitar
I don't
player.
know. I just work here.
Siobhan's the one with credibility. God, ask her.
No.
But no, man, listen, I think the key is adaptability, right? And like I said, a lot of this stuff is things I either already kind of know or have tried to purpose in my own life. And so to some degree, the show creates a lot of reinforcement, you know, for things that maybe I've already kind of made bedrocks of my mentality. But I think that's okay. I think it's okay to see that these patterns kind of tend to go around. But the thing I was going to say was about that there's these phases, you know, like when you get into this field, when you're in your 20s, there's a certain mistakes you tend to make, right? And some people, if you don't make that, maybe a lot of it is like some people just were raised better. They're a little smarter. They don't go into it like with me with like maybe a low self-esteem. I'm trying to fill some hole in my life over here, so I make these decisions. Or some artists, they don't get success till they're a little older, right? So then it's easier for them to handle it, right? They're already an adult. They're
like
a little
Britney,
more
right?
like Britney.
Yeah, she could handle it. Oh wait, isn't she like fighting against her dad because she can't even take care of her own? Like that's what it does. It fucking spits you out.
Well,
like, I think free Britney.
I think that's completely different because I think on that level,
because that's crazy.
There's the patterns there are related to being so famous and so wealthy that it's difficult, and especially in her situation where maybe you don't have people that you can rely on. In my opinion, her situation is very similar to the, like Amy Winehouse or Whitney Houston, where if you don't have enough protected people that you can trust, or Michael Jackson for that matter, then you get too many yes men around. You get too many people that create a situation where she seemed like she was pretty much had her shit together mentally when she was younger, but the situation just devolved. And and I can look at it from a lot of different angles where I'm like I said before about removing yourself, like what she should have done when all shit was going on is just go to
Well, she has
Italy.
more, this is a true fact, she has more hits in the last 30 years than anyone. I believe she has broken some of the Beatles records as far as charting because she was literally created. But it's actually kind of scary to think, because imagine you get so much success, you freak out, you cut your fucking hair, you flip out in public, all right, you go bananas, and then your dad becomes the executor to your estate, and then 10 years later you have to go to court to fight your dad because he's some tyrannical asshole, and actually beg the courts to let a third party person mediate your all the money you're making, the Britney money, the crazy money, the money that you dreamt about existing. She's making it, but in her own fucking jail that her dad has devised for her. I read that.
I mean,
it's crazy.
Well, it's actually
the internet must be true.
It's a conservator, which is a very different kind of thing because it's about.
Oh, you know about this?
I watched the thing the other.
Oh, there's a thing about it now. There's probably.
No,
this is a classic Ben move. He's like telling all.
I
the
probably
facts
watched the thing
like...
when I was really high, and I'm just regurgitating it. Like, this is my idea.
No, it's a really unique and crazy situation. But going back before, I was saying where you can look at the situation, and I think people tend to look at this stuff in very black and white terms. Like there's a victim and an abuser, and it's like very defined. I think the one thing that she has on her side is that she was just really young. And I don't think
she's a girl, not yet a woman.
Well, just anyone. I mean, look what happened to Justin Bieber. He was a disaster, right? But when you get that famous and rich, when you're 19, 20 years old, no one is built to be able to live like that, where you just go around and thousands of people are chasing you around and there's people taking your picture, and
like Miley Cyrus.
But
she
also
went from like literally
people,
this is what
it's
it's what we've been talking about the whole
Yeah.
time. I mean, it takes there's such a trajectory of getting yourself emotionally acclimated and professionally acclimated to handling the life of success and the life of being in the public. So just imagine if you're
it's not
young,
just
I mean,
the
you haven't
public. It's kind of like
developed.
what you're saying about the yes men. Like now you have people around you that their salary depends on you continuing to make them money. So they're not going to make decisions based on what's best for you. They're going to make decisions based on.
That's why they told Chris Farley to never lose weight.
Yeah. So that's a scary thought.
Yeah, well, I look at that situation and I say what she should have done when she was going through is just, I'm going to Italy, I'm shutting everything off. Don't come look for me. I'm going to go be a human being. But she didn't do that. She went in her state of pain and agony. She went to find love anywhere she find it. So she got married. She had a kid. She had a lot of people who, when they're young, they have children because it's like they just want someone who loves them unconditionally. And that created more problems, right? I'm not saying having, maybe I'm sure she loves her children and all that, but it's complicating things instead of simplifying things. Every time I see her and they're like videotaping her and she's in her hoodie, it's like she's in like LA. I'm like, why are you in LA? Go to Montana. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. So there are things in your control. You're just not doing them, but she also probably didn't have the tools. And it's once you're kind of on that downslide, it's once you're on it, it's just very difficult. So I have tremendous empathy and compassion for anyone who's at that level of fame. That I get it, they're rich and they have all this stuff, but that does not look fun to me, and I wouldn't want that. I just wouldn't.
Oh my gosh!
Kind of look what Dave Chappelle did is more, I think, indicative of what someone who has a good head on their shoulders.
But he was grown up. He was a grown. He was a grown man, but I look at someone like Natalie Portman, who was like a famous child actor. She went to college. She went to Harvard. She stopped acting and got to like just be a person and took some distance from it. But if, like I said, if your parents are sycophants or your parents are people who are trying to suck you for every dime, where can you be safe?
Yeah.
Where can you gain perspective? So it's if we look at 100 of these situations and you're like, oh well, that person went crazy, that person went crazy, that person went crazy. Are they crazy, or is it the situation that's crazy that we should start looking at, and our relationship with the way we like? I'm sorry.
Have we learned nothing from Macaulay Culkin?
But Macaulay Culkin is actually pretty well balanced human being.
Now,
I'm just saying I don't remember.
His dad was crazy.
Well, his dad was crazy, but I'm saying, but he somehow found a way to kind of center himself. But I think because he got out of the field to the degree he was doing it. But I think certain things I don't think you should be able to show up and when someone's in their car with 50 cameras and harass them. That should be illegal. I'm sorry. You just shouldn't be able to do that. That's harassment. Like, it shouldn't be legal for someone to be on a beach and they're like, and then the people are taking photographs from a mile away and selling it for $1 million. Like, that's crazy to me, And I know it's freedom of press, but at a certain point, that's, when do our private rights to privacy kind of...
We're living Big Brother, dude, except the difference is that we are Big Brother. We are the ones that are actually broadcasting because we're posting to Twitter. We're posting like where we are. We're
but this stuff predates
in.
all that. Like, Princess Diana got killed by the damn paparazzi before social media existed. So,
I was watching the Spice Girls live on Saturday Night Live, so I don't think social media was non-existent, but it may have been smaller.
Well, different format. But
yeah, for sure.
Well, anyway, so let's shift gears a little bit and let's kind of return to the present moment, so right. Well, we referenced in the last episode, which we intended to get into, but then got derailed per Benny. But so Bad Wolves is in a bit of a transition at the current moment. You're without a singer, and I'm wondering if maybe we can talk about it, maybe shed some light on what's going
Does
on.
Siobhán have a chance? That's what she wants to know.
I have no desire to be a singer, so no worries there.
Got you, Benny?
I mean, if you're asking, I'll send you a demo.
Okay. Where we're at, well, listen, it's a crazy situation, and it's kind of like scary, but also exciting at the same time, but it's the great unknown, which I think in many ways is a reason why people often don't make change, because it's like the devil, right? It's like something familiar. So it's it'll be amazing when it's all figured out and sorted out and we can just get back to just working and doing the activity of a normal band. But listen, we have a monumental task.
Nobody's doing the activities of a normal band, by the way, unless you're in a studio, because you can't tour. So maybe this is a good time for discourse.
Listen, it is what it is, but I'm a student of history when it comes to bands and artists and career arcs. And you see how many times bands try and change a singer and it doesn't work. You see the examples where it does work. And so you're trying to use that history to establish something that could possibly work out.
But what happens when you have a Van Hagar situation where they are more successful, but then you have all these people that are staunch, like, you can't have Van Halen without David Lee Roth. Yeah. But all their albums were #1 with Sammy. All of them.
Well, but that's what in many ways, that's the best case scenario. So, once you make that change, there's never not going to be people who are going to be not going to be unhappy with it, and so you just have to just learn to deal with that and be okay and say, okay, those people are going to be unhappy. They're going to, especially now in the social media era where everyone can comment or people can send you messages and really be confrontational about their lack of happiness. That's something we all have to basically build up our defenses to not take it personally all the time. That it's natural, and that I've been in situations where I liked a band and they lost a member, and maybe I didn't like that band as much anymore. I liked a movie or TV series where they changed an actor or they replaced someone, and I didn't like that as much anymore. So we're not immune from feeling that way. And so I shouldn't take it personally either way. It's just the ball's in our court, essentially, to make a new situation and make great music and do great touring and put that back together. But like I said, we have quite a challenge in front of us because we're placing someone who's really great at what they did, and that's very hard to do. So like I said, right now we're kind of in the middle of all of it, and I can't really like get into the details of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
But you know, it'll be awesome when we figure it out. But
you can always reference the great historical documentary Rockstar, and just let Marky Mark like show you how it's done.
Stand up and shout.
Well, listen, it would be easier if the band was so big that there were like hundreds of tribute bands out there that we could just pluck someone.
Yeah, pinpoint a candidate. Yeah,
out of obscurity, but
then you get the guy from Journey who sounds exactly like Steve Perry, but then you watch it and you're like, what the fuck is this? Because it's disconcerting. Because the guy literally sounds like Steve Perry in 1983, but he's like, you know, I don't know where he's from, but like he does not look like Steve. Yeah, he does not look like Steve Perry, but he also looks like a super geeky normal guy on stage with all these old aging rock stars. But it sounds like Journey, but the visuals like you're on acid and you're watching U2 with Slash singing, and you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, but that's. I mean, and we can find like a lot of examples like that. Like I toured with Queensryche a few years back.
That guy sounds totally.
Yeah, he sounds very similar, but and that has worked for their brand, you know, and that's kind of something everyone has to figure out. Like, right, like how similar do you want someone to be so that it still feels like the same product to a certain degree, because people have an expectation of what is this or what is that, and I think every band has to kind of figure that out. Do you get someone who is very similar to the previous person? Do you get someone who's their own thing, like the Van Halen situation, where you had someone who did not sound like David Lee Roth at all, but had really great chops as a singer, probably better.
What do you think of a band like Alice in Chains, who have William Duvall, who's first off, when I saw them, I was like, holy fuck, this guy sounds amazing. But it also reminded me how much Jerry Cantrell is half the voice of Alice in Chains.
Well, I think I'd put that in more the best case scenario situation. But I also think it's very different when someone passes away, because there's a different kind of relationship and kind of attachment and emotion that comes with that. So if they would have replaced, you know, not that William Duvall is probably way too young to replace him at the time when he passed away, but if it would have happened right away, maybe people would have felt differently about it. But when you listen to the music that they wrote with William Duvall, it's like probably one of the best comebacks ever. That's probably my favorite comeback record for any band ever. Yeah. And he's like, sounds close enough where it's like, this is Alice in Chains, but he's not doing a Lane Staley impression, right? Which I think is kind of what you want. I think the guy STP got, Jeff Gutt, is
Jeff's awesome, dude. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Where he sounds like Scott, but you can tell he's a better singer. He has a better range. He can kind of do more stuff. And it allows the band to have a career. And that's ultimately that's what you're trying to do. You're just trying to survive as a band and keep doing things. And we only have 2 records out. You know, it's not like we've been around for 20 years and we're making a shift, right? It's kind of very early in the band's career. So it does maybe give us a little bit of advantage in terms of a reset. But yeah, it's like I said, it's almost weird having these conversations now because we're talking about
it's an ongoing situation
and contemplating, as opposed to talking about definitive things. And once we do have a singer, it'll be.
Well, it sounds exciting, dude, because, you know, with obviously being in a band with somebody where you get to a point where like you're no longer with them, it's got to be a bunch of relief when it's over at some point. Because being in any kind of relationship where you're relying on someone that you can no longer rely on, it's very tiresome. Even though they might be really talented, they're holding you hostage with their talents and the fact that maybe your crowd loves them. So even though it might be a huge thing that look, Tommy is a great singer, but the fact that you guys had so much success probably gives you a lot more opportunity to meet people that are awesome singers in their own right, and to also carve out a new niche. You're right. You're completely right. You don't have 5 Van Halen records before Sammy. You guys are a relatively new band that could still pave the way. So maybe you can become the Billy Corgan of the band. I suggest it.
No, I mean, listen, there are opportunities there where maybe other guys in the band, this will give us an opportunity to create a better relationship individually with each person in the band and open that up. I go back and forth between being like, we got this, we're going to hit a home run, to like, it's going to be failure. But like I said before about dealing with failure, like I have a completely different, like if it doesn't work out, I'm kind of okay with that too. Like it's like, hey, we tried, we did it, didn't work out. But there's also that element in me where it's like, you kind of also can't think that way. You have to just be like, we're going to do it. Put the positive inertia out there. We're going to kill it. We're going to crush it. Don't let the negativity in there. And don't be okay with failure, But
don't you think that little voice in your head is what's keeping you honest with yourself enough to actually have a barometer to know that you're going to fucking kill it? Because obviously you have to walk into this and go, I'm going to triumph, or you're just going to fail. But there also has to be some sort of realistic thing saying, look, there's a high bar, man, and you better fucking make it happen. So don't you think that having that little voice in you going, you're going to suck, is probably just like Corey's friends telling him that his band's the worst? No.
Here's where it goes with 2 things to me. One, no one believes in me more than me. Like, I'm just serious.
That's
like,
true.
There's no people just like, I'm like, we're to the point where I'm like, I need to check myself.
That's great. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Like, I really am like, yo, I got this, right? But I'm also
hold my beer, America. Doc's got this.
But I'm very much, I'm a stats guy. Right. I'm like a guy that goes, I would literally put together a spreadsheet, right, of all the bands that have changed singers and say, when did it work? When it didn't work? And I'll do the math. And you go, okay, the math is not on our side. Right. If you were to just look at it that way. But
you show this to your girlfriends, you're like, we could get married, but there's a 50% chance that you're going to die.
Jesus, got dark.
Why did you go there?
Just say, do you literally, do you pull up your family?
I do think that way, and it's not
flowchart.
Like you're right, it's not a romantic way of looking at the world. It's a very real. It's
pragmatic, yeah,
and that's not always the way to be. But so I think in some of these situations, you have to put on blinders and just say, "We're gonna feel it. It's gonna be great. Don't worry about it." And because you literally have people we literally have people telling us, "You're going to fail.
Yeah.
It's over." You're gonna people, your band's gonna be done in 6 months. You got nothing. And you're like, and these are people who are supposed to be your fans.
Right.
You say that
I saw this because I saw this on Instagram, and I wanted to ask you, because that's got to be really hard to deal with, people like just getting immediate feedback from people that probably have no idea, 90% of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes with a band. And it's just so interesting how,
well, it's
all
funny
those comments
you say
are
you have
out
to check
there.
yourself, but I think, and I've said this, I associate a lot of the best success. So a guy like Bono, being almost delusionally believing in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Someone asked Bono, did you ever think you were going to be in the biggest band in the world? And he said, I always knew I was in the biggest band in the world. I just didn't know when the world was going to figure it out. And that's kind of like the mentality that I almost feel like any really successful person has to have in the music industry, because it's so unfulfilling and unrewarding. And even when you get to echelons where people think that this is success, you're still not at a point where you feel like you're successful relatively to like your friends getting out of school, having 2.5 children and a picket fence. It's really a realistic checking of yourself. But I feel like you have to be slightly delusional and believe in yourself when no one else will, because you're right. Nobody else is going to help you more than you.
Well, like I said, and I'll go back to those examples I said about people like Will Smith. If Will Smith would have told you when he was rapping on stage, yo, I'm going to be the biggest movie star in the world, people would laugh at you.
Can you just say parents just don't understand?
Yeah, if Jamie Foxx was on Living Color doing Wanda, you know what I'm saying, doing that, it's like, yo, I'm going to win an Oscar one day for a serious dramatic role. People are like, yo, you're on crack, right? People would like, so really most of this shit to get to big at any level is irrational from the point of where you're at, right? There's only a few like LeBron James out there where they come out like that dude's gonna be one of the greatest of all time, right? There's a few of those people where it's like,
you didn't think Marky Mark when he came out was gonna be like an unbelievable actor?
I mean, I don't think anyone.
Good Vibrations. He faked it all the way to number one.
I think that's a bad example because he was so new. No one really knew anything to say.
He wasn't a new kid. That was his brother.
Yeah, no, but I just mean like there wasn't a lot to go on there. So it's like who's to say, right? But I do think for anyone to get to any premier level of anything, based on the context of where you start, is all irrational. So if you look at the numbers, yes, the likelihood is all things are kind of not going to get there, but just don't worry about that. Don't worry about the statistics. Just stay on course, do your thing. And it says, what does success mean to anybody, right? Success is kind of a self-determined idea, right? Like if you just like, yo, I'm happy working at Costco and I got a family and I got my baby and I'm a happy person, then that's success, right? So success is all subjective. And so is failure, right? If you thought you were going to sell $10 million, you only sold $9 million and you think you're a failure, to everyone else, you're a success. But, so it's a lot of that stuff is internal. And to me, all that stuff is like the success part of it is right now. It's in the processes of getting through the situation. And it's like, here you have a big problem. How do we solve the big problem? How do we, or maybe not even look at it as a problem, just look at it as like a task. Like we have to, we got this wood and we got these nails, and we got to build a house. So just go build the house. And it's going to be hard and you're going to sweat and you're going to want to quit. And you're like, and one day it's going to be raining and you're like, fuck, we got to go outside and still put in the nails. And so just building the house, whatever happens after that, a lot of it's out of your control. So all you can do is just do your best, stay positive. Don't worry about people shit talking you, I think all that stuff builds your character. When people tell you you're going to fail and you sit there and you go, I think I'm going to be good.
You know, what's funny.
Yeah,
my dad, when I was younger, he has a very, very dark sense of humor, and he cut out a Calvin and Hobbes, which I love Calvin and Hobbes, the comic. And it was his dad. It's Calvin's dad. And anyone that's read that comic, his dad's very, he's like exactly like my dad. And he said, Calvin, go do something you hate. It builds character. And that was literally on my refrigerator my entire childhood. And that was kind of like my dad's whole thing to me. Like, you know what? If you don't like it, it's building who you are.
It's true. And a lot of things I've noticed doing certain jobs where you think, oh, I'm not going to like this. And then you end up learning you actually like something you didn't realize, or on day one you didn't like it, but you grew to like it. It's important. Like I started doing this thing because I didn't even mention I play in a band with Rob and Kirk from Metallica. And
a wedding band, is it not?
Well, it's just called the Wedding Band. It's not.
That's well, you told me we actually spoke on a Sound Talent Media thing, and I didn't know if it was a wedding band or so it's called the Wedding Band.
That's the name of the band. But Rob Trio says he said he was like takes cold showers in the morning, like, and it has all these. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that. And I looked it up, and basically one of the properties it has is it actually like puts your body into shock slightly. So
that's why I do cocaine.
What's that?
So that's why I do cocaine, man. I don't need to take a cold shower. Just fucking, it's fine.
Okay. Well, I got money like you, so I got.
No, I'm just messing. I'm like this naturally.
So no, but what it does is it's a small form of shock to your body. So it actually makes you more resilient because you're like purposely doing something that your body is like, and so when something difficult happens, it actually builds up more of a resistance to adversity. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So I'm like, oh, I kind of like that. Like I'm purposefully going to do something that's going to that's uncomfortable. Do
you take cold showers in the morning?
Yeah,
Has it helped you? Like, I'm curious because now I'm like thinking to myself, maybe I take a cold shower.
I've heard a lot of people say this.
Who
Yeah.
knows? I think any of these things that we do, who's to say, right? Like, am I doing an experiment? Is it,
Maybe Robert's masochistic.
What's that?
Maybe he's just masochistic.
Well, it's not that masochistic. I mean, do it for a few minutes.
He's in Metallica. It's pretty masochistic.
No, look it up. Look up the Coyle Chapter. It's the same thing too. Like
it's like a cryotherapy type.
Yeah.
Like
I'll consider
shock
that
to
in
your
the
system.
summer months. It's already.
Is that what they say when you jump
in
into like the pond like on New Year's Day? That's like it's cryotherapy.
Well, there's
What?
cryotherapy, which is more for
Different, yeah.
for like recovery for your muscles. But there are some people that'll do like the cold bath into the sauna and kind of just that back and forth is like does all this really kind of.
I've actually done that, and it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, I bet. But anyway, there's a little mini version of that. But anyway, the whole point is that this is going to be a difficult time, and I always think about that line in Training Day when Ethan
Want
Hawke
to get wet?
Huh?
You want to get wet?
Not that line. The one where Ethan Hawke goes. It's kind of like. He's like, it's like the first day of football tryouts, and I just wish it was tomorrow, so I already knew if I made the team. And that's like everything in my body says, I wish I could just fast forward till it was all figured out. But you can't. There's no shortcuts. Only way to beat the fire is to walk through the fire. So it's this thing of like every day you're like, all right, can we do it? Is it gonna? And today was one of those days where I woke up a little like, all right. Am I gonna win today? I don't know. We're gonna see. But I had to just kind of slowly, like, all right, you gonna do it? You kind of just
you got to talk to these assholes tonight. This is gonna suck. Yeah.
No. This is the fun. This is the fun part. This like kind of just even talking about it is part of the process of psyching yourself up, right? Like you guys asked me a question about it, and I have a decision to make. Do I go? Well, I don't know. It might not work out, right? I have a decision to say. To like downplay it or
you can just do the Phil Anselmo. I always say when you're trying to do marketing, just do the Phil Anselmo. Just go back to anything he ever said on stage live. We're the fucking best. Fucking drink this wild. So we fucking don't follow the trend. Anything he said. Everyone I feel like in the metal industry after Phil Anselmo was like, we're going to come out with the great Southern Trend Kill. But they didn't have Dimebag or Vinny. And it never worked that way again.
Yeah.
That's metal for me, all summed up. Because I'm closed-minded like a lot of metalheads. Because I feel like that must be hard coming from a band like God Forbid, where I know when I used to go to hardcore shows, that there were people that if you didn't like hardcore, if you weren't in the scene, that they were actually really mean and might kick your ass. Like that, it's a hard scene. Like I actually saw other bands get beat up because they didn't let other bands have a long enough set because of the hardcore scene. And then meanwhile, you're doing all, what's the difference as far as the type of people that maybe used to go to God Forbid shows and the way that you see bands, and also knowing that you came from a culture. Because I mean, I'm telling you, I went to those hardcore shows, and those guys, if you said that you listened to Beethoven, they'd probably like kick your ass, like just literally for saying that. Some of them. I'm not saying everybody. There's plenty of people that probably did that, but there's FSU dudes that beat the shit out of people because they listen to Beethoven.
Well, this actually goes back to Cory. You asked me a question earlier that I didn't have a very good answer for because I felt like I had already repeated myself, but. This is something that I've learned through the show is that almost everyone that came up to the hardcore scene has found relatively decent success in their life because the hardcore scene was all about DIY. It was all about if you didn't know how to do something, you learned it. If you didn't, no one was going to help you do something, you figured it out. And it's all about community, resourcefulness, knowing that it was very like you knew you were going to sleep on floors. You knew you were going to have to drive. So that stuff hardens you and it makes you like goes back to saying about being adaptable. It goes back with like getting all these, like just being like, hey, I'm going to put out my own record so that you don't realize you're learning skills that will help you down the line that, I'm thinking like an entrepreneur. I'm thinking so like
you're malleable or being able to modulate.
Just being a self-starter and not waiting for permission to do anything. And so that's one thing out of that community across the board. So many of those people end up just doing well in all these different fields because just to have any success required you to just work really hard and just be at the forefront. And you have people who are maybe a tough crowd, or some people wouldn't want to give you respect, and you had to go out and just earn it person by person. And so anything that is difficult to do ultimately makes you stronger. TM, I just came up with that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I just invented that right now.
So that's a great way to wrap this one up. We're coming up to the end of the second.
Well, he was talking about
part.
statistics. When I was in my class, when I was learning health, they told me to listen to statistics, but he told me don't follow the numbers. So maybe I don't have to wrap it up.
What?
1 in 3, Cory. 1 in 3.
Check out the X-Man podcast. Check out Bad Wolves. Join their Patreon and keep supporting them. And stay tuned for all the updates that I'm sure will be very interesting over the next few months.
And Doc, how can people follow you or support? Like, what are some things that you want to promote now or that people should check out other than what Cory mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, all my social media is at Coyle. I have a website, .coyle.net. I had a date, need to update that. And I'm on another podcast / YouTube show called Last Words, which is presented by the website The Pit, which is We Are The Pit. So yeah, I'm out there. I'm very, very easy to find.
Creative people tend to just be more emotionally fragile and emotionally, just
Go on.
just where handling that. You have to kind of like make sure that you know how to process that and be a lot of different things for them, whether it's publicists, therapists, just you have to be able to listen and you have to be able to act even faster.
Wait, the guy that wrote "Fuck it all, fuck this world, fuck everything that you stand for" is sensitive. I would never.
Most sensitive guy I've ever met, Cory Taylor.